The gym was silent. That was the first thing Judith noticed. No footsteps above her head. No bass from the sound system Raymond ran every night while he trained. Just the low hum of the air conditioning and the faint buzz of security monitors in the hallway. She was folding towels in the laundry room when it hit her, the kind of quiet that doesn't belong in a house this size. The kind that makes your skin prickle. Judith Morales had been working in Raymond Jordan's Saratoga estate for 8 months. Long enough to know his rhythms. Long enough to recognize when something felt wrong. She glanced at the clock on the wall. 9:47 p.m. He should have been on the treadmill by now. She could usually hear it from 2 floors down, the steady mechanical whir, the muted thud of expensive running shoes on rubber. Raymond Jordan didn't break routines. Men like him didn't survive Silicon Valley by being unpredictable. Judith wiped her hands on her apron and moved toward the hallway. The marble floors reflected nothing but her own shadow. Every light in the house was on, but it felt empty. Hollow. She climbed the stairs slowly, listening. Nothing. But before we dive in, don't just watch, please hit the subscribe button. I'm still fighting my way to our first 1,000 subscribers, and every single click truly keeps this channel alive. And tell me in the comment where in the world you are watching from. Your support inspires us to keep creating more emotional stories of resilience, healing and kindness. Judith's phone buzzed in her pocket. A text from Mateo's after-school program, pick up by 10:30 or late fee applies. She typed back quickly. On my way soon. That's when she heard it. A dull, heavy thud. Like a weight dropping. Like a body hitting the floor. Judith's breath caught in her throat. She moved faster now, past the hallway lined with abstract art worth more than her annual salary, past the floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the valley lights below. Her heartbeat filled her ears. The gym door was half open. She pushed it wider. Raymond Jordan lay on the floor near the weight bench, one arm twisted beneath him, the other stretched out like he tried to catch himself. His face was the color of old newspaper. His lips had a faint blue tint. His chest moved, but not right, shallow, uneven, like his body had forgotten how to breathe. Judith's stomach dropped. She'd seen this before. Her father. 16 years ago. The same color. The same awful stillness. She didn't scream. She didn't freeze. She ran to him, dropped to her knees, and grabbed her phone with shaking hands. 911, what's your emergency? He's not breathing right, he collapsed, I don't know what happened. Her voice cracked. She pressed 2 fingers to his neck. There was a pulse. Faint. Irregular. The dispatcher's voice was calm. Too calm. Is he conscious? No. Is he breathing? Barely. It's not normal. Raymond's eyes fluttered. Unfocused. Empty. Judith looked at the man whose name was on buildings, whose decisions moved markets, whose life was worth more than 1,000 of hers. And all she could think was, not again. Please, not again. Ma'am, I need you to start chest compressions. Her hands hovered over his chest. Do it now. Judith pressed down. Hard. Counting out loud. 1. 2. 3. Her arms burned. Her vision blurred. 30 compressions. Then the dispatcher said something that made her freeze. You're going to need to give him rescue breaths. Judith stared at Raymond Jordan's face. At the most powerful man she'd ever met. At the invisible line between their worlds. And she knew, if she crossed it, nothing would ever be the same. Tilt his head back. Pinch his nose. 2 breaths. The dispatcher's instructions were clinical. Mechanical. Like she was describing how to reset a router. Judith's hands trembled as she tilted Raymond's head. His skin was cold. His jaw slack. She thought about Mateo. About the late fee she couldn't afford. About the invisible cameras she knew were watching from the corners of the ceiling. She thought about her father, blue-lipped on their living room floor, while neighbors whispered behind closed doors and the ambulance took 23 minutes to arrive in East San Jose. "Ma'am, you need to do this now." Judith leaned down and sealed her mouth over his. One breath. His chest rose slightly. 2 breaths. She pulled back, her own breath ragged, and went back to compressions. Her shoulders screamed. Sweat dripped into her eyes. 15 more. Keep going. She counted. Out loud. Because if she stopped talking, she'd fall apart. 15. 16. 17. Raymond's face stayed gray. 2 more breaths. She did it again. Mouth to mouth. Life to life. The richest man in Saratoga and the maid who cleaned his toilets, connected by nothing but oxygen and desperation. Somewhere in the distance, sirens wailed. "They're almost there," the dispatcher said. "You're doing great." Judith wasn't doing great. She was doing what no one else was there to do. 30 more compressions. Her arms felt like they'd snap. She didn't stop. The sirens got louder. Closer. 2 more breaths. Raymond's chest moved. Once. Twice. Then nothing. The front door burst open. Boots on marble. Voices shouting commands. "Step back, ma'am." Paramedics flooded the room. A man in navy blue knelt where Judith had been, taking over compressions. Another unzipped a red bag. A third pressed an oxygen mask over Raymond's face. "How long has he been down?" "I don't know, maybe 5 minutes before I found him." Charging. Clear. They pressed paddles to Raymond's chest. His body jerked. Nothing. Again. Clear. Another jolt. His heart monitor beeped. Flat. Then a single blip. "We got a rhythm. Let's move." They lifted him onto a stretcher, strapping him down, moving fast. One of them glanced at Judith as they rushed past. "You saved his life." Then they were gone. Judith slid down the wall, her back against the cold glass window. Her hands were still shaking. Her knees were bruised from the floor. Her mouth tasted like someone else's breath. She stared at the empty space where Raymond had been. The weight bench. The dumbbells lined up in perfect order. The water bottle still sitting on the bench, half full. Everything looked normal. Like nothing had happened. Except everything had. She pulled out her phone. 10:14 p.m. She was going to be late picking up Mateo. Her fingers hovered over the screen. She should text someone. Call someone. Tell someone what just happened. But who? The agency didn't care about emergencies. They cared about schedules and discretion and not making waves. So Judith stood up, legs unsteady, and walked to the laundry room. She grabbed her jacket. Her keys. Her purse. She turned off the lights. And she left Raymond Jordan's estate the same way she always did. Invisible. If this story is making you feel something, anger, hope, tension, don't just watch it. Subscribe. Because stories like this don't go viral by accident. They spread when people who care decide to pass them on. If you believe someone's dignity is worth more than their paycheck, hit that button. That's how the algorithm learns what matters. Upstairs, in the control room Raymond never visited, security footage recorded everything. Frame by frame. Angle by angle. A woman on her knees. A man on the floor. Mouth to mouth. It looked like CPR. But to someone who wanted to see something else, it looked like a kiss. And by morning, That single frozen frame would destroy Judith Morales in ways she couldn't yet comprehend. Because the truth doesn't matter when a lie is more convenient. Judith woke up to her phone vibrating off the nightstand. 6:23 a.m. 12 missed calls. 27 text messages. 3 voicemails. She grabbed the phone, eyes still blurry from 4 hours of sleep. The first text was from her cousin Maria. "Is this real?" Attached was a screenshot. Judith's stomach turned to ice. The image was grainy but clear enough. Her face. Raymond's face. Their mouths connected. The timestamp in the corner read 9:51 p.m. The caption underneath made her hands go numb. "Poor Maid caught kissing Millionaire CEO during medical emergency." She scrolled. Fast. Another text. A coworker from her old job at the hotel. "Girl, what did you do?" Another. "A church friend. Praying for you." Another. A number she didn't recognize. Gold digger trash. Judith sat up, heart slamming against her ribs. She opened her email. One new message. Subject line, contract termination notice. Her hands shook as she opened it. "Dear Ms. Morales. Due to conduct inconsistent with the moral and professional standards required of prestige home staff employees, your contract has been terminated effective immediately. Please arrange retrieval of personal belongings with security. Access to client properties has been revoked. Regards, Human Resources." No phone call. No explanation. No chance to defend herself. Just one cold email and a digital door slammed in her face. Judith read it 3 times. The words didn't change. She tried calling the agency. Straight to voicemail. She tried texting her supervisor. No response. Her breath came faster. Shorter. Mateo appeared in the doorway, rubbing his eyes. "Mom." She forced her face into something that wasn't panic. "Hey, baby. Get ready for school." He padded back to his room. Judith sat frozen on the bed, phone clutched in both hands. By 8:15 a.m., the screenshot had been shared 400 times. By 9 a.m., it was on 3 gossip blogs. By 10:30 a.m., someone posted it to a Saratoga neighborhood forum with the headline, "Domestic Worker Takes Advantage of Vulnerable Employer." Judith didn't see any of that yet. She was standing outside Raymond Jordan's estate, waiting for security to let her retrieve her things. A guard she'd said good morning to for 8 months stared at her through the gate intercom like she was a stranger. "You need to leave. I just need my jacket. And there's a photo of my son in my locker. You're not authorized to enter the property. Leave now or we call the police." The gate didn't open. Judith stood there for 5 seconds. 10. 20. Then she walked back to her car. Inside Mateo's school office, the principal was already printing the screenshot. A parent had emailed it that morning with the subject line, "Concerns about student safety." At Stanford Hospital, Raymond Jordan lay in a private recovery room, sedated, unaware. Leonard Hale sat in the chair beside him, scrolling through his tablet. The board chair had been awake since 5 a.m., managing the situation. 3 calls to legal. 2 calls to PR. 1 call to the staffing agency, making sure the problem was contained. He looked at Raymond's sleeping face and felt nothing but relief. The optics could have been worse. At 11 a.m., Judith picked up Mateo from school early. The secretary wouldn't make eye contact. At 1 p.m., someone taped a printout of the screenshot to her apartment door. Across her face, in red Sharpie, 1 word. Disgusting. Mateo saw it before she could pull it down. "Mom, why does it say that?" Judith crumpled the paper in her fist. "It's nothing. Someone made a mistake." But her son's face told her he didn't believe her. That night, Judith sat at her kitchen table and opened her bank account. Rent was due in 2 weeks. She had $1,340 saved. Her car payment was $280. Mateo's after-school care was $400 a month. Without her job, she had 30 days. Maybe 40 if she skipped meals. She applied to 6 housekeeping jobs online. Not one called back. Because when they searched her name, the first result wasn't her resume. It was her face, frozen in a moment that looked like betrayal but felt like survival. And the truth didn't matter. Because the truth was inconvenient for people who mattered more. Most people will scroll past this story and forget it by tomorrow. But if you're still here, you're not most people. You're someone who sees the difference between a headline and the truth. Subscribe if you believe the full story deserves to be told, not just the part that fits in a screenshot. 3 weeks passed. Judith applied to 43 jobs. Housekeeping. Retail. Waitressing. Grocery stocking. Anything that paid and didn't require a background check she couldn't afford. She got 2 responses. The first was a hotel in Milpitas. The manager seemed interested until she asked Judith to come in for an interview. Then, 20 minutes later, an email, position has been filled. The second was a cleaning company in Mountain View. The woman on the phone sounded kind. Professional. Then she paused. Have you worked in private residences before? Yes. For 8 months I was with. Hold on. The sound of typing. Then silence. Then, quietly, I'm sorry. We're not hiring right now. Judith knew what she'd found. The screenshot. The headline. Her name, now permanently tied to a lie. She stopped putting her real name on applications after that. It didn't help. At the grocery store, she paid for milk and cereal with coins she'd collected from the bottom of her purse. The cashier counted them twice, sighing loud enough for the people behind Judith to hear. At Mateo's school, other parents stopped talking when she walked up. They smiled tight, polite smiles that didn't reach their eyes, then turned away. One morning, Mateo's teacher pulled her aside. I wanted to let you know, Mateo's been eating lunch alone this week. Judith's throat tightened. Did something happen? The teacher hesitated. Some of the other kids, their parents have been talking. I'm sure it'll blow over. It didn't blow over. That Friday, Mateo came home with a note from another parent. It was folded into a tiny square, shoved deep in his backpack. Judith opened it. We've decided it's best if the boys don't have playdates right now. I hope you understand. She didn't understand. She wanted to scream. To march to that woman's house and make her look Judith in the eye and say it out loud. But she didn't. Because she needed this town to forget her. Not remember her angrier. On Sunday, Judith's landlord called. I'm raising your rent. What? Why? Property values are going up. New rate starts next month. $1,500. Judith's current rent was $950. That's not legal. You can't raise it that much. I can if I say it's a month-to-month lease. Check your contract. She did. He was right. Judith sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the peeling paint on the wall. She'd lived in this apartment for 3 years. It was small. The heater barely worked. But it was theirs. Now it was slipping away. She opened her phone and scrolled to her church group chat. 12 members. People she prayed with. Shared meals with. Trusted. She typed, does anyone know of job openings? Anything helps. 3 people saw it. No one responded. That same Sunday, across town, Raymond Jordan sat in his living room for the first time in 3 weeks. His chest still ached. His doctors said he was lucky. That without immediate intervention, he wouldn't have survived. Leonard Hale sat across from him, tablet in hand. The board's relieved you're recovering. We've kept things stable. Raymond nodded slowly. His memory of that night was hazy. Fragments. Pain. A voice counting. Then nothing. What happened? He asked. Leonard shifted. You had a cardiac event. Your housekeeper called 911. Paramedics arrived in time. Raymond frowned. Judith? She's no longer employed. There was an incident. What kind of incident? Leonard pulled up the screenshot on his tablet. Turned it toward Raymond. Raymond stared at the image. At Judith's face. At his own. What is this? Security footage. It was handled internally. The agency terminated her contract. No liability on your end. Raymond's jaw tightened. Why was she fired? Leonard's tone stayed even. Practiced. The optics weren't good. Investors were asking questions. It was the cleanest solution. Raymond looked at the image again. Something about it didn't sit right. But his head was still foggy. His body still weak. And Leonard had been managing his affairs for 15 years. So Raymond said nothing. He trusted the people he paid to handle problems. That's what they were for. Meanwhile, Judith sat in her car outside a plasma donation center, hands gripping the steering wheel. She'd sold her laptop. Her microwave. A necklace her mother gave her before she died. It wasn't enough. Matteo needed new shoes. The school was threatening to drop him from aftercare for late payments. And Judith Morales, who had saved a man's life, couldn't even afford to keep the lights on. She didn't cry. She was too tired. The eviction notice came on a Tuesday. 30 days to vacate. Judith read it twice, standing in her doorway, the paper shaking in her hands. Her landlord hadn't even called. Just taped it to the door like a parking ticket. She folded it carefully. Slid it into her purse. Went inside. Matteo was on the couch doing homework. Mom, can I have a snack? She opened the cabinet. 1 box of crackers. Half a jar of peanut butter. Sure, baby. She made him a plate and sat next to him, watching him eat. 30 days. She'd been looking for apartments all week. Everything in San Jose required first month, last month, and a deposit she didn't have. She called her cousin in Gilroy. No room. She called an old coworker. Same answer. Matteo looked up at her. Are we gonna move? Judith forced a smile. Maybe. Would that be okay? He shrugged. I guess. She kissed the top of his head. That night, she got a text from another agency. Not Prestige. A smaller one. We saw your application. Unfortunately, we can't move forward. Best of luck. Judith replied, Can I ask why? 3 dots appeared. Then disappeared. No response. She tried calling. Voicemail. She knew why. Her name had been flagged. Quietly. Efficiently. The staffing agencies talked. They shared lists. Problem employees. Liability risks. Judith Morales was both. Across town, in a glass conference room on the 20th floor of Jordan Dynamics headquarters, Raymond's legal team was meeting. 6 attorneys. 2 PR consultants. Leonard Hale at the head of the table. Is the matter settled? One of the attorneys asked. Leonard nodded. The employee's been terminated. The footage has been archived. We issued a statement to investors emphasizing Mr. Jordan's health and swift recovery. No further action required. What about the employee? Any risk of legal action? Unlikely. She signed an NDA as part of her employment contract. Even if she wanted to speak, she can't afford representation. One of the PR consultants leaned forward. The story's dying down. Local media moved on. As long as Mr. Jordan doesn't comment publicly, we're clear. Leonard made a note. He won't. Someone asked, does he know the full details? Leonard's expression didn't change. He knows what he needs to know. They moved on to quarterly earnings. No one mentioned Judith's name again. Because to them, she wasn't a person. She was a line item. A risk assessment. A problem solved. And the cost of that solution was someone else's life. The next day, Matteo came home from school with a black eye. Judith's heart stopped. What happened? He wouldn't look at her. Nothing. Matteo. His lip trembled. Travis said you're a liar. I said you're not. He pushed me. I pushed back. Judith pulled him into her arms. He cried into her shoulder. Why is everyone being mean? She didn't have an answer. Because the truth was too ugly. Too big. Too unfair for a 7-year-old to carry. So she held him and said nothing. That night, after Matteo fell asleep, Judith sat in her car in the parking lot of a 24-hour diner. She didn't go inside. She just sat there, hands on the wheel, staring at nothing. She thought about her father. About the way people whispered after he died. About how no one helped. How they just watched. She thought about Raymond Jordan, recovering in his mansion, surrounded by people who protected him from inconvenient truths. She thought about the invisible line between their worlds. And how she'd been punished for crossing it to save his life. Judith didn't believe in fairness anymore. She believed in survival. And survival meant disappearing. So that's what she'd do. If you've watched this far, you already know how the system works. It protects the powerful and erases the rest. Subscribing won't fix that. But it tells the algorithm that stories like Judith's deserve to be seen, not buried. If that matters to you, don't just watch. Make sure this reaches someone who needs to hear it. 2 months later, Raymond Jordan sat in his home office reviewing security protocols. It was routine. Quarterly audits. Insurance requirements. He signed off on these reports 4 times a year without reading them. But tonight, something caught his eye. A file name in the archived footage log, medical_event_full_footage_NOV_12.mp4. Raymond frowned. Leonard had shown him a still image. Told him it was handled. But Raymond had never actually seen what happened that night. His memory was still fractured. Flashes of pain. Darkness. Then waking up in a hospital bed 3 days later. He clicked the file. The footage opened on an empty gym. Timestamp, 9:43 p.m. Raymond watched himself on the treadmill. His gait was off. He slowed down. Stopped. Gripped the handrails. Then he collapsed. The sound was worse than the image. The dull, heavy thud of his body hitting the floor. For 8 seconds, nothing moved. Then Judith appeared in the doorway. Raymond leaned closer to the screen. She didn't hesitate. Didn't stand there confused. She ran to him. Dropped to her knees. Pulled out her phone. The audio was faint, but he could hear her. He's not breathing right, please, he collapsed. Her voice cracked. Shook. Raymond watched her press 2 fingers to his neck. Saw her face change when she found his pulse. The dispatcher's voice came through, calm and distant. Judith's hands moved to his chest. She started compressions. Raymond counted with her. 1, 2, 3. Her arms shook. Her face twisted with effort. 30 compressions. Then the dispatcher said something Raymond couldn't quite hear. Judith froze. She stared down at him, at his unconscious body, and for 3 full seconds, she didn't move. Raymond saw the hesitation. The fear. Then she leaned down. Mouth to mouth. 1 breath. 2. Back to compressions. Her lips moved. She was talking. Raymond turned up the volume. Stay with me. Please. I have a son. I can't, please just stay. Raymond's chest tightened. He watched the paramedics arrive. Watched them take over. Watched Judith slide back against the wall, her whole body trembling. One of the paramedics glanced at her as they loaded Raymond onto the stretcher. You saved his life. Judith didn't respond. She just sat there. Alone. Shaking. Then she stood up. Turned off the lights. And left. The footage ended. Raymond sat in the silence of his office, staring at the frozen frame on his screen. He replayed it. Watched her hands shake. Heard her voice break. Saw the moment she made the choice no one else was there to make. Then he opened his phone and searched her name. The first result was the screenshot. The headline. The comment threads beneath it. Gold digger. She knew what she was doing. Disgusting. Raymond scrolled further. A local forum post, domestic worker terminated after incident with employer. A gossip blog, Maid caught kissing Silicon Valley CEO, agency responds. Not one article mentioned CPR. Not one headline said she saved his life. Raymond's jaw clenched. He opened his contacts. Found his head of security. I need you to locate Judith Morales. Today. Sir, she's no longer. I don't care. Find her. He hung up. Then he sat back in his chair and looked out at the valley below. At the light stretched across Silicon Valley like a circuit board. He'd built an empire on information. On reading markets. On knowing what others didn't. But he hadn't known this. He hadn't asked. And someone had paid for his silence. Raymond didn't sleep that night. He watched the footage 4 more times. And each time, the shame burned hotter. Because the truth had been there all along. He just hadn't cared enough to look. Raymond called the press conference himself. No advance notice. No vetted guest list. No legal team signing off on talking points. Just a single email to every major outlet in the Bay Area. Raymond Jordan will make a statement regarding the November 12th incident. Tomorrow. 10 a.m. His estate. By 9 a.m., 23 reporters were gathered on his front lawn. Leonard Hale showed up unannounced at 9:30. What are you doing? Raymond stood near the window, watching the cameras set up. Telling the truth. We already managed this. It's over. It's not over for her. Leonard's face hardened. You don't owe her anything. She was paid to do a job. She did it. The optics were bad. We made a business decision. Raymond turned to face him. You made a decision that destroyed someone's life to protect mine. That's what I'm paid to do. Not anymore. Leonard blinked. Excuse me. You're done. Effective immediately. I want your resignation on my desk by noon. Leonard's voice dropped. You're making a mistake. I already made one. I'm fixing it now. At 10 a.m., Raymond walked out onto his lawn. No podium. No script. Just him and a microphone. The cameras went live. My name is Raymond Jordan. 2 months ago, I collapsed in my home. I would have died if not for the woman who found me. He paused. Let the silence hang. Her name is Judith Morales. She called 911. She performed CPR. She gave me rescue breaths when my heart stopped. She kept me alive until paramedics arrived. A reporter raised her hand. Raymond ignored her. What you saw in that photograph was not a scandal. It was survival. Mine. He pulled out his phone. Held it up. I'm releasing the full security footage. Unedited. You'll see exactly what happened. And you'll see what I didn't bother to check before I let my team destroy her reputation. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Raymond's voice didn't waver. Judith Morales was fired for saving my life. She lost her job. Her income. Her housing. She was blacklisted from an entire industry because the people I trusted decided a lie was easier than the truth. He looked directly into the nearest camera. I'm responsible for that. Not my lawyers. Not my PR team. Me. Because I didn't ask questions. I didn't verify. I didn't care. Someone shouted a question. Raymond spoke over them. Leonard Hale, my former board chair, has been terminated. So has every attorney involved in suppressing this story. The staffing agency that fired Judith without cause is being sued. And I'm making a public commitment. He took a breath. I'm establishing the Jordan Emergency Response Initiative. We'll provide free CPR training across Santa Clara County, starting with domestic workers, low-income communities, and anyone the system overlooks. Judith Morales will run it. Not as a figurehead. As the director. With full control over budget, hiring, and curriculum. The reporters erupted with questions. Raymond stepped back from the microphone. He didn't take questions. He walked inside, pulled out his phone, and called the number his security team had found. It rang 4 times. Then a cautious voice answered. Hello. Judith. It's Raymond Jordan. Silence. I know what happened. I saw the footage. All of it. And I need to see you. Why? Her voice was flat. Guarded. Because an apology isn't enough. And I need to know what justice looks like. More silence. Then, quietly, I don't want your guilt. I'm not offering guilt. I'm offering a choice. Meet me. Or don't. But if you do, we're not talking about charity. We're talking about power. Real power. Yours. Judith didn't respond right away. When she finally spoke, her voice was steady. Where? You've made it this far. That means something. Most people stop when the story gets uncomfortable. But you're still here. If you believe truth matters more than convenience, subscribe. Not because I'm asking. Because the people who need to see this won't find it unless you help it spread. They met at a coffee shop in Sunnyvale. Neutral ground. Raymond arrived first. No security. No assistant. Just him. Judith walked in 10 minutes later. She looked different. Thinner. Tired. But her eyes were clear. She sat down across from him. Didn't order anything. Raymond slid an envelope across the table. What's this? She asked. A check. Enough to cover what you lost. Rent. Income. Legal fees if you want to pursue action against the agency. Judith looked at the envelope but didn't touch it. I don't want your money. Raymond nodded slowly. Then what do you want? She leaned back, arms crossed. I want the next person who does what I did to not lose everything for being decent. That's what the initiative is for. I don't want to be the face of your charity project. It's not charity. You'd have full authority. Budget decisions. Hiring. Curriculum design. I'm offering you a position. A real one. Judith's jaw tightened. Why would I trust you? You shouldn't. Not yet. He pulled out his phone. Showed her a document. This is the operating agreement. Your name is on it as director. You report to a board, but you chair the board. I don't get a vote. I fund it. You run it. Judith scanned the document. Her eyes moved fast, looking for the catch. What's the salary? Whatever you decide is fair. You control the budget. She looked up. And if I say no? Then I'll find someone else. But they won't have what you have. Which is what? The moral authority to do this right. Judith set the phone down. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, I want it in writing that this isn't a PR move. I want the lawyers who covered this up named publicly. And I want protections for every domestic worker in California so this can't happen again. Raymond didn't hesitate. Done. Judith stared at him. Searching for dishonesty. For performance. She didn't find it. One more thing, she said. Name it. I don't want your apology. I want you to understand what you didn't see. I want you to meet the parents who wouldn't let their kids near my son. I want you to sit in the apartment I'm about to lose. I want you to feel what it's like when no one believes you. Raymond met her gaze. Okay. Okay. Show me. 3 days later, Raymond Jordan stood in Judith's apartment. 1 bedroom. Peeling paint. A couch with duct tape holding the armrest together. Mateo sat at the kitchen table doing homework. He looked up when Raymond walked in. Who's that? Someone I used to work for, Judith said carefully. Mateo studied Raymond for a moment. Then went back to his math. Raymond looked around. At the eviction notice on the counter. At the nearly empty cabinets. At the stack of bills Judith hadn't been able to pay. This was the cost. Not theoretical. Not distant. Real. At the initiative's launch event 6 weeks later, Judith stood at a podium in front of 200 people. Reporters. County officials. Domestic workers from across the Bay Area. Raymond sat in the 3rd row. Listening. Judith's voice was steady. Strong. I didn't save him because he was rich. I saved him because he was human. And that shouldn't have cost me everything. The applause was long. Loud. But Judith wasn't done. This program isn't about me. It's about the thousands of people who work in homes where no one sees them. Who are told to stay quiet. To stay invisible. This is for them. She looked directly at Raymond. Because being invisible shouldn't mean being powerless. 1 year later, California governor signed Assembly Bill 2847 into law. The Good Samaritan Protection Act for domestic workers. It passed unanimously. Judith stood in the state capitol, watching the vote. Mateo sat beside her, wearing a tie he'd picked out himself. When the final count was read, people stood and applauded. Mateo leaned over. Is this because of you? Judith squeezed his hand. It's because of a lot of people who decided the rules needed to change. By then, the Jordan Emergency Response Initiative had trained 12,000 people across Santa Clara County. Housekeepers. Nannies. Caregivers. Construction workers. Janitors. People the system had trained to stay quiet. Now they knew how to save lives. And they knew the law protected them if they did. 3 graduates of the program had already used their training. A housekeeper in Palo Alto saved her employer during a stroke. A gardener in Los Gatos performed CPR on a neighbor. A nanny in Cupertino kept a child alive until paramedics arrived. All 3 kept their jobs. None of them were punished. At the program's 1-year celebration, a woman approached Judith after her speech. She was young. Maybe 25. Nervous. I just wanted to say thank you, the woman said. I work for a family in Atherton. Last month, the grandfather collapsed. I did CPR. Just like you taught us. He lived. Her eyes filled with tears. And no one fired me. No one blamed me. They called me a hero. Judith pulled her into a hug. You are. Across the room, Raymond watched. He'd stepped back from Jordan Dynamics. Not completely, but enough. Enough to be present. To learn. To listen. He didn't give speeches anymore. Didn't take credit. He showed up. Funded what needed funding. Then got out of the way. Because he'd learned something most powerful people never do. Sometimes the best thing you can do is make space for someone else's voice. That night, Mateo's school held a mandatory CPR training session for all 5th graders. He practiced on a dummy, counting compressions out loud, while his classmates watched. One of them asked, "How do you know all this?" Mateo glanced at his mom, standing in the back of the room. "My mom taught me. She saves people." The instructor nodded. "She does. And now you can too." Judith didn't cry. She just stood there, watching her son learn to do what she'd done. Not because he had to. Because he could. And when the class ended, Mateo ran up to her, grinning. "Mom, I got it. All 30 compressions." Judith knelt down and hugged him tight. "I'm proud of you." He pulled back, serious now. "Do you think I could save someone?" She looked at her son. At the boy who'd suffered because she'd done the right thing. At the young man he was becoming. "I know you could. Because that's what justice looks like. Not one person saved. But a generation taught that saving someone, anyone, is never the wrong choice. And that the people with the least power often hold the most courage. Sometimes what looks like a scandal is actually a sacrifice. And sometimes, the truth takes time. But it always matters. If this story changed how you see power, injustice, or courage, don't let it end here. Subscribe. Not for me. For the next person whose truth gets buried under a headline. The algorithm listens to people who care enough to make noise. Be one of them.